Hola, familia. Today we have a good friend of NAHREP, an amazing friend of NAHREP's, Carmen Mercado, with us today. Carmen is the Senior Affordable Lending Manager with Freddie Mac, but we all know her as the 2011 National NAHREP President and also the founder of the Leadership Academy. So we're so excited to have this conversation today. Carmen and Freddie Mac have done an amazing job at doing a survey, a national survey on real estate agents as it pertained to 2020. And many of you were involved in participating in this survey. So we're excited to hear about the findings and see what it says about the industry, what it says about prospects for continued Latino homeownership growth. But without further ado, Carmen, welcome.
Well, thank you, Noerena. You know, this is always one of my favorite places to be, coming back to the NAHREP membership and being able to share some amazing information. I always say you wear the NAHREP presidency with a badge of honor. So thank you again also for NAHREP, agreeing to participate in this survey. It was really important for Freddie Mac to get a hand on the pulse to understand what was happening in the market. And you guys really stepped up to the plate, helped us push the survey out. So we wanted to make sure that we shared the results after all the work that you did. So without further ado, I'm going to go right into some of the results. Just to give you a little framework around what did we do at Freddie Mac, it was our corporate communication teams, our marketing teams got together, and we reached out to partners such as NAHREP. And we wanted to make sure that we were reaching out to real estate professionals. So what we did, we had about 30 questions. Some of them were very COVID specific. We wanted to make sure that we were asking how was COVID impacting the business. Then we also wanted to ask some general business questions, understanding that these are responses for real estate professionals, not buyers. But we did ask them a little bit about their buyer and sellers kind of behaviors, if you call it, throughout the process. We were very excited. We had about a little bit over 1,500 respondents, so it gave us a really good picture across the board of what was happening. And what you'll see on this slide that I'm sharing is kind of the tenure in the industry. So a large percentage, actually 31% of our respondents were actually in the business for over 20 years. But then you also see some folks that were in the business for less than 5 years. The reason that's important is because it also will differ how they answer, right? The questions. Are you a seasoned professional? Are you a less seasoned professional? So we want to really understand who's responding in this particular survey. 93%, Noerena, were actually real estate professionals, right? Real estate agents, brokers, and then we had a small cohort of loan originators, title company folks that responded to the survey as well. Again, we partnered with 9 associations. Of course, NAHREP, we're very grateful for your partnership. And actually, there were some really particular nuances around the Hispanic market that we'll kind of uncover, Noerena, as we kind of move along. So just to go back 1 second, Noerena, I'm going to go back to this slide in particular, because when we look at the tenure of the real estate agent, right, you saw that most of them were on the higher spectrum. But we also asked them how many of them actually refer their buyers to loan officers, right? So interesting, Noerena, 77% that yes, they are considered the trusted advisor, and buyers are asking them for lender referrals. So when I look at the less tenured, I think about NAHREP's membership, right? And what you guys comprise of in terms of the age and demographics. I'm just curious, any feedback on this page or in terms of what you're seeing at the NAHREP end?
Well, yeah, if you look at the Latino community in general, Latinos are the youngest demographic. So if we're looking at Latinos having a median age of 29, I'm not surprised by this. And in terms of that trusted advisor, this is the largest financial transaction in most people's lifetimes. And we have seen this in terms of what our members tell us anecdotally. There's a true relationship that is formed between the NAHREP real estate agent and the family that is the household that's buying a home. I mean, you're there with the whole family, you're eating, sharing a meal, breaking bread,
Absolutely.
really get to know each other. And, when you're going through, it's a very personal experience. I mean, you talk about your finances, your debt, you talk about, your struggles of why you want to achieve homeownership. And in reality, this real estate agent becomes this trusted advisor, comes to, other things, when it comes to down the line, questions that they have about either, another transaction or investing, or, financial troubles, government resources. So we have seen that just anecdotally with our members. This is
No, absolutely. Absolutely, Noerena. And I've seen that, as having practiced real estate and sold and focused on the Latino market, for me, this was no specific surprise.
Yeah.
So when we look at kind of like, okay, so we asked a couple of questions, as you can see, and we said, how many of your past clients have actually reached out to you to talk about, what maybe COVID-19 or how COVID-19 has impacted them, maybe looking for the resources, whether that's forbearance discussions.
Yeah.
And actually, it was interesting, Noerena, that only 4% responded, that 1 out of 25 clients were calling them, but that number actually doubled when their client base was comprised of 10% or more Latinos, African Americans, or low to moderate income buyers. So talks exactly, Noerena, what you were just saying. The Latino real estate agent becomes, or folks that are focused on the Latino market, just become that trusted advisor even further beyond the transaction. And these numbers show that.
Yeah. No, I mean, when I was trying to understand the gravity of the situation, particularly with Latino small businesses going under during the shutdowns, I reached out to many of our real estate agents, and they would just give me stories. I mean, they were basically sharing all the information about how to apply for the PPP program when it came to owners of a daycare, restaurant owners, the dry cleaner owner, the tree trimmer. So that's, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, this is why we took a lot of time to create a COVID-19 Resource Center, so that we can train our real estate agents to have the most up-to-date information so that they can distribute it to their communities. So this was, I was not surprised by this as well.
No, absolutely. And especially when it comes to homeownership preservation, right? About maintaining that wealth that a lot of Latinos have in homeownership. It's no surprise that they would reach out to that trusted advisor. So really glad that we have been able to share a lot of those COVID resources with NAHREP at the very beginning of the pandemic. So thank you, because little did we know that after the survey that the results were in, that we were providing the right information to the NAHREP members, because this survey really just confirmed we were on the right track. Yeah. So moving forward, when we look at, how did it impact the business, a lot of them said it was 62% specifically was focused on kind of supply, right? There was a really low supply. You saw that was a little higher when you looked at the Northeast segment of the business, 81% that their business has been impacted by COVID. So although we did see, different ways of doing business, right? Open house traffic, sales, market competition and pricing, you kind of see how across the board things were, certain markets in the Northeast closed down much sooner than the West Coast, right? So it's a lot of the data was really just kind of what we thought, but we wanted to make sure that what we thought was happening was actually what was happening, and the respondents, I think, just confirmed that.
And then when you talk about supply, you talked about housing supply.
Yes, correct. Sorry. Yeah. So we're talking about housing supply. Exactly. There's less supply and just so much demand. And actually what you see also here, Noerena, that the report showed that 1 in every 4 said that their business improved. So not everything was negative, right? And so I want to make sure we state that, because I know I reached out to a lot of NAHREP members, in Chicago, in California, across the board in New York. And I would ask them, how's your business? How are you doing, right? Because I generally was caring for their business. I wanted to make sure their well-being. And many of them were telling me exactly what this slide says. 27% felt that it was positive. that, their buyers were more eager to buy. We did see 54% said that either buyers or sellers were kind of on the fence, right? Not sure where things were going to be. Should they sell? Should they buy? And all of this is going to have a direct impact on supply and demand, right? So a lot of more sellers decide that they're not going to sell, and it's going to have an impact in terms of affordability and what's available to buyers at large. So no surprise there. The other thing we asked them was regarding what kind of changes that they have to implement in their business. No surprise, before this time, Noerena, I don't know about you, but I didn't know what PPE meant. But now we know what PPE means, right? It's across the board. But what we saw was a lot of real estate professionals having to actually provide PPE for either appointments, virtual showings, or in-person showings, I should say, but more like open houses, so that if folks were going to go look at that property, the sellers were comfortable with having other individuals, other families come and view that property. But what you also saw, 55%, they said they started kind of going towards private home tours versus just open houses where anyone can go in, multiple families at a time. A lot of them started taking advantage, thank God for the technology era that we're in, a lot of remote closings. And, anecdotally, I have heard from a lot of real estate professionals, they hope that part stays. They kind of liked the ability to do so much with technology. So there were some positives or silver linings that came from, the way they needed to shift their business. And the virtual showings, I have spoken to many real estate agents that have told me they have had drone showings, or they're walking around with their cameras. And the results just show that what anecdotally I was being told actually was quantifiable in terms of a survey.
So about that, was there any difference between, for example, NAHREP agents or agents that had, high amounts of Latino clients in terms of the comfortability in buying a home while only seeing the home virtually? Was there any nuance on that?
That's an interesting question, and I would have to look at the raw data to see if we capture that. At this point, I can say I don't believe we captured that, specificity, but it could be. So if I do find it, Noerena, you'll be the first one that I'll share it with. But I don't think because we do have a lot of the raw data, of course, but I can take a look at it. But at this time, I don't think we went that granular.
Gotcha.
But great question. Other thing we asked, we said, what were some other challenges? No surprise, Noerena, 83% across the board of respondents said there's just not enough homes in the buyer's price range. That is, we know that's happening. There is just too much demand, not enough housing. Then if you have sellers sitting on the fence line of putting their house on the market, that's going to just contribute. You have so many more individuals that are coming of age, right, to be able to buy a home, especially within the Latino community. So we saw that squeeze on that supply and demand, 66%, they're just dealing with that. And 55%, they were dealing with so many multiple offers above asking price in some parts. So again, we do know that we have an issue at hand across the nation. This is a nationwide issue that we need to solve for. But this is just really bringing home that this is exactly what was happening in the market and continues to happen right now.
Yeah, and this was probably, and this is corresponds nicely with our State of Hispanic Homeownership report, where we found that the areas that had the most acute housing shortages were areas with high Latino populations. So Latinos tend to live in high cost markets where some of these situations were the most dire. So yeah.
Absolutely. We got
to do something about that.
Yeah, I agree. The other thing that we looked at was, what type of challenges were they facing depending on the tenure. So no surprise here for me. I mean, having been in the industry for so long, really, if you looked at the tenure, the longer they were in the business, the less challenges they have attracting sellers or buyers because they have an established business. But when you start looking at the less tenured, right, which you also have within the Latino market, a lot that are less tenured, right? Real estate, I know I fell into real estate, right? It wasn't something I said, oh, I want to become a real estate agent, right? That's not something that I thought I would be doing. So this doesn't surprise me. The younger or the less tenured, I should say, in the business, about 74% at attracting sellers was hard. So this is important data, right? Because when you're talking to, especially as an association like NAHREP that attracts such a youthful membership, what they're looking for is skill sets and how do I attract sellers. So it helps really program kind of the educational opportunities. And you guys have done a phenomenal job. I do want to commend you here with kind of the mastermind sessions around this, Noerena, right? You have brought in some of the heavy hitters, like the Juan Martinez and others of the world into the conversation with less tenured professionals to kind of like escalate, right? Or expedite their business much faster. So we also saw that they were struggling a little bit. What a year to come into the business with 1 year or less. No surprise, they're struggling with developing relationships, right? NAHREP and the world had to do virtual conferences. So the more we can do to help the less tenured professionals kick into gear so that they stay in the business, because we need larger representation in terms of youth in the business as well as diversity in the business. So just curious, what are some of your thoughts on this particular slide?
This is really interesting. I mean, obviously, I think that is one of the biggest value adds of NAHREP is that access to those relationships, those role models, those mastermind sessions with top producers. I do see that us being able to have in-person events is only going to magnify and support some of these folks that are entering into the business most recently. So we're very excited about that. But that also gives us some insight on where to double down in terms of the programs and the programmatic elements of our conferences and our sessions. So this is really helpful.
Great, thank you. I agree as well. So let's move on. So when we take a look at outside of COVID, we wanted to ask some questions just in general, right? Just the market. Tell us a little bit about your business. And professionals actually said, we wanted to see where do we reach real estate professionals? Where do they access their information, number one, and what do they want to access? So you'll see the next couple of slides, we'll dive a little bit deeper into that. But 76% said that they actually got their information on trends, things that were important to them directly from real estate media publications, right? So if you have a real estate company who's looking to reach, this is important data, right? In terms of how you form your marketing and your outreach efforts. 70% said that they looked at colleagues and industry professionals. So I think NAHREP score is really high there for sure. 69% professional development classes, right? They're interested in honing their skills and looking for new things that they can learn. 60% said the trade association membership news. And NAHREP does a great job with that. You're constantly communicating online, you have Gary's blogs, all these different sources of information. So I think from an association standpoint, you're right on target with what the respondents are saying. And 53% said that they access social media. That was interesting. When you looked at the different diverse markets, it was a little higher for the African American community in terms of social media. But in terms of trade association and where they're accessing their data, that was one of the questions. The other questions we wanted to ask, now that we know where you're going for your information, what kind of information are you looking for? 60% of the respondents said that they were looking for technology trends, changes, things that were happening. Where are we today, but where are we going? And there was really no difference whether they were in the business 21 years or whether they were in the business 5 years or less. The other highest percentage was social media, where you saw that they were looking, how do I use social media as a business marketing tool? You do see some differences around the demographics in terms of tenureship. 53%, 21 years in the business or less, and then a little higher when you come to the less tenured. And then the other thing was 45% actually wanted to know about home buyer trends and buyer information. So this is great information for anyone who's looking to develop content, right? How do I reach? What do I need to be talking to? What do I need to be training to? And this was very helpful for us as well. so that we can make sure that our messaging is hitting all those different components to help them with their business. The other thing we wanted to look at was how many real estate professionals felt that they needed more information on certain topics. Of course, Freddie Mac is focused on affordability. Our mission is exactly that, right? To provide liquidity and stability in the market, especially for low to moderate income buyers. So we asked very pointed questions about, did they want more information about down payment resource programs? 51% that said they wanted. Of course, it was higher with the less tenured at 72%. We asked them, did they want information about mortgage products that were available for low to moderate income buyers or those with non-traditional credit? You see, that's 48% overall, but 66% for one or less, and 21 years or more. Of course, the more you're in the industry, the more information you have, the more knowledgeable you are. But we also wanted to ask them about mortgage product needs, 42%. So that's still very healthy. We know that we still have a lot of work to do, even though Freddie Mac is always out there training and educating about our affordable products. There's still a big demand and a big need. So glad to be able to do that with NAHREP as our partners. This one, I do want to kind of stop here for a minute, Noerena. These are 3 out of 5 expressed that they wanted to learn more about Freddie Mac's coursework. Of course, this was very specific, right? We, as Freddie Mac, we needed to ask the question, what is your interest level? And we were very excited to see that 61% expressed an interest in learning more about our products and our resources. So we'll be partnering with you, with NAHREP, to be able to deliver that at the regional level this year. I'm very excited to see that there is that interest, which also kind of, Noerena, speaks a little bit to that. You were talking about that trusted advisor role that the Latino agent plays, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So this was very, very exciting for us. Lastly, is where we have just a few more slides to go through, but 1 in 8 of the real estate professionals that we surveyed said that they had worked with a housing counseling agency or financial, coaches. So this what was interesting. Although those numbers are low, right? These are professionals that have not really engaged in the space. It was more prevalent if the real estate professional had 10% or more of their client base that were Hispanic, right? I mean, that's at 20%. So 12% to 20, that's a big jump, which also tells you about the cultural nuances around really the Latino family relying on that trusted advisor for all of their information.
I wonder how much of that has to do with assistance or certain FHA products and the prevalence of Latinos getting access to those.
Yeah, no. And the other thing is also, like you mentioned it, this could, we would have to look at the correlation depending on what part of the country they responded from. But if you have Latinos, as you mentioned, Noerena, that live in more high cost markets, right? I'm in New York. So if you want to buy in New York, my son is trying to buy in New York, and, really understanding that affordable housing, it's really difficult in New York. So they have to look for other resources to help them bring down that mortgage payment, whether that's a down payment program that maybe one of your lenders have to offer, or maybe it's a state, agency down payment grant. So I think that there may be a correlation there as well, but it was just interesting to see that more of the Latino base was accessing that information. So just to kind of wrap up, yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. So here's a couple of deeper dives, and I'll kind of go through these quickly with you, but we wanted to make sure that we were kind of weighing where were some of those challenges, right, overall, in terms of, just in general. Not enough houses available, you see ranked number 1. Clients having, unrealistic expectations, right? I mean, I want the castle, but I have, I don't have that budget. So that's a reality, right? So we do know that it's a big picture, but what I wanted to point out a couple of differences, actually. So we looked at first-time home buyers. 86% respondents said that their home buyers didn't have enough home available in the market within their price range. But look at the right-hand side. If you look at the bottom right, it says what type of properties, right, did their first-time home buyers prefer? Well, a lot of them, 43%, were move-in ready properties. The first-time home buyers wanted move-in ready. They didn't want any sweat equity in the program. They wanted to move in. 34% said that it was location, right? But I want to kind of go into some of the differences specifically for the Latino community. When we went to the low to moderate income buyers, 50% had unrealistic expectations, and the low to moderate income buyers, 32% were move-in ready, which makes sense, right? Because they're using all of their budget for the purchase, so they may not have a cash flow, right, for some repairs. But there are programs out there that could help them, like a renovation product. So it's all about educating them on, hey, maybe you don't need a move-in ready. But what really struck me personally was more on the Latino market. So I left that for the last because I think that's going to really hit home with you. We also looked at veterans, and we know there are a lot of Latino and Latinas that are veterans that have served in the military. But you see, again, they're struggling with the same issues: not inventory, supply, multiple offers. But here's what I found really unique. Being a Latina, living in a multi-generational household, here's what I found unique. When you asked what was more important, location was more important for the Latino buyers. Again, understanding that these are responses from the real estate agents, they felt that their buyers were more focused on location than move-in ready, right? So again, it talks a little bit to that family-centric, right? Wanted being close to each other, being close to home. They were willing to put that as a priority versus move-in ready, right? Look how low, 17% were move-in ready versus 32% location.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we've always talked about. Gary speaks about that a lot, about how Latinos not only are driving homeownership growth, but they're driving all the ancillary businesses associated with homeownership. You know, doing that sweat equity and you know, fixing up the house, buying up a fixer-upper, all of the contributions to the economy that go through, you know, purchases at Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever it may be. You know, we want to be able to quantify. That's one of the things that we've been yearning to do, is to quantify the full contributions that Latinos make to the housing portion of the GDP, which we wrote a little bit about a report, but that's really fascinating, and it's consistent with what we know anecdotally. Again, it's nice to have a number behind it. So thank you for that.
No, you're welcome. Absolutely. And then the second one, look at size, right? 20% focus on the size. Again, multi-generational household. Do you need the little, you know, either ADU, or you need, you know, to convert a garage into, you know, a little space for, you know, abuelita, my mom. I converted my garage, right, so that she can have an in-law suite, as you call it. So what I wanted to say, you know, really in terms of wrapping this up, Noerena, with you from a survey, what I saw from this survey was general data that gave us a Freddie Mac perspective as, do we know we're going out there with the right message? Because there is still not only a desire and an interest, but there's a need. There are individuals that are looking to purchase a home. And yes, although right now it may seem a little tough, we also realize that the real estate professional plays such a pivotal role in this transaction, and especially when we're working with the minority communities, right? Look at the Latino numbers being so different in terms of access to down payment, wanting to learn more about that, access to affordable loan products, information about trends, where they're going to, even from a preservation standpoint and foreclosure prevention, they're still reaching out to that real estate professional. So, you know, we just wanted to put this out there. You know, thank you again for participating with us on this. I think it really gave us a kind of really good blueprint as to what kind of content we can deliver and work together, so that we're sending this information to the real estate professionals that are NAHREP members, so that when they're going out to their community, we're getting the right message and the right resources to where it needs to be. So with that, really, Noerena, I'm going to pass it back over to you. I thank you. This was a very exciting project for us to do at Freddie Mac, and we couldn't have done it without your help.
Well, fantastic work, Carmen. We all know that knowledge is power, and understanding these nuances through surveys is so critical to creating the right approaches, the right products, to really understanding, where are the areas that we need to focus as an industry, as policymakers, as industry professionals. So thank you so much. I think more than anything, it gives us ammunition to how critical it is to educate ourselves on all of the various nuances of, resources out there and in the home buying process, so that you can be an even better resource to your clients. And it gives us ammunition to the work that we need to do to better serve our agents. So thank you so much, Carmen. It was so great talking to you, and so great to go over these data points with you. And let's get to work now. Let's put these data points into action.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen.